Hey, everybody, welcome into episode 18 of the Jack Cohen Podcast. I'm joined once again with fan of the show, AJ Gersh. AJ, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself in case they haven't seen some of the previous episodes.
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? I'm here in the WBFF Fox 45 Sports Unlimited office for the first time, I believe, for the first time I'm on the show from the office. I
I
think
believe
there are
so.
other times that I was on the show, I was elsewhere, but now you got me in the home studio putting together my show for tonight. I'm sports anchor and reporter for us here at Fox 45, and I'm a hometown kid, just like Mr. Cohen. And from Savannah Park originally, and happy to be reporting on the O's and the Ravens and everything in between.
Thanks again, AJ, for joining me on episode 18 tonight. So let's get right into it. First, we got to talk about the bad. It's really the first time in a couple years since 2022 where we've had to say that the Orioles are under 500. And you obviously have an inside look, more of an inside look than the fans do. What do you see behind the Orioles' struggles this year?
Well, it
That's
was,
been
of
different than
course,
the last 2 years.
yeah. I mean, there's in reality, Jack, there's not a lot that's different. It's the same core. Of course, yeah, the manager right now is different, but in reality, you take a look at things, right? How did the Orioles start this season? They started as bad as 18 games under 500, and then Brandon Hyde gets canned, and in comes Tony Mansolino, and since then, they've actually been a good baseball team. They've been pretty well above 500 for the last month, and they won back-to-back series to start the month of June. Then they kind of floated around 500 throughout the rest of the month, and now they have an opportunity heading into the All-Star break to maybe put a little bit more behind the wheels, and hopefully, if you're an Orioles fan, get the team close to 500 as possible by the end of July and the trade deadline. But the difference between a team like this year and a team like, let's start out with 2023 per se, because 2023 was the golden standard for an Orioles team, is what they did so well in 23 was they won those close ball games. And this year they're not winning those 1 or 2 run games as often or as frequently as they did in their best season the past decade. The pitching, starting pitching to start the year was horrible. Now, as the year has progressed, it's gotten much better. I'll be fair to the team and say it has gotten much better. But then when the starting pitching started to get better, the other issues started to emerge, be that the bullpen. The bullpen started to fall apart in the recent weeks and months. And the lineup was not hitting and producing at a level that they're capable to, especially against left-handed pitching. Um, to start the year. But once again, in the past month or so, they have shown a lot of things that I like and that I have seen can make a winning baseball team win baseball games. And they have. And there are a couple of reasons for that, a couple of players that we can get into. But yeah, all in all, they started out so poorly that it's just been a claw back at a slow and steady pace to try to get close to 500.
Yeah, and obviously, as you mentioned, the trade deadline is coming up. And last year, Orioles made some splashes. They definitely went out for quantity over quality. Austin Slater, Eloy Jimenez, Trevor Rogers. They traded away fan favorites like Norby and Stowers. Do you expect some of the same from Elias and his crew at the deadline this year, or do you expect to see a little bit different considering a different state of the Orioles?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a different approach this year. What that approach is, I'm not 100% sure. Whether that approach is stand still or sell. I don't think that there's any world in which they're going to go out and get a bunch of players like last season and just try to acquire. They have depth, believe it or not. And you who watches a lot of Orioles games, you know that they're a fairly deep ball club in pretty much every aspect. Now, the quality of that depth, as you were saying, quantity over quality, that's left a lot of people kind of scratching their heads, and especially when you look at the rotation and the bullpen and what's happening at catcher right now specifically. with everyone injured, and that's been another thing that I didn't even touch on, and the reasons that this team is under 500 is that they've had 24 players go on the injured list at some point this season. 24. That's over half of a 40 man on the IL at some point this year. They currently have 14 guys in the IL. Eight of those are pitchers. So there is a lot to blame on just sheer luck and bad luck in the injury department. But if the Orioles, I think, Jack, can get to within 4 to 5 games under 500 by the trade deadline. So that's I got my above me. I got my big calendar of Orioles games that I just wrote out for the month of July. So you got the Texas series, the Atlanta series, the Mets, Miami before the All-Star break. And those are all somewhat, the Mets is going to be difficult, but all somewhat winnable series. And then Tampa Bay, who the Orioles, for whatever reason, have played well against this year, coming out of the break. And then Cleveland is tough 4 game series. But then you got the Rockies and Toronto. You have that doubleheader from earlier in the year where they canceled a
Right.
game. So the Orioles are off on the trade deadline day. But if you get to 4 or 5 games under 500, I would think that they would want to stick with the core and
Right.
ride it out for this season and just say, you know what, like this team has been a winning baseball team since Tony Mansolino took over. And that trajectory would set them somewhere, if they could be 4 or 5 under by the end of July, somewhere around 82 to 84 wins by the end of the season. And if that's the case, then there's no reason to sell
No,
off everyone because
not at all.
83 to 84 wins has been a playoff team since the playoffs expanded with the extra wild card. So I I, I don't think that they would sell at that point, but there's a very real possibility, Jack, that the team is not there by the end of July. And that
Yeah.
and in that case, I think that you would be silly to not get some pieces for expiring contracts.
Yeah.
Zach Eflin, unfortunately, has pitched himself out of a good deal with in terms of the trade deadline deal. At least as good of a deal as you could have gotten for him at the beginning of this season or in the off season. A guy like Sagano, you can hope maybe puts together a couple good starts in a row so that you can get a nice trade out of him. The guys that I don't think I would trade if I were the general manager of this team, but also have some value are Cedric Mullins, Ryan O'Hearn, and Ramon Laureano as well. So watch out for those. But I don't think I would trade any of those guys. Maybe O'Hearn, I think, would be the one guy who I would be most willing to move. But Cedric Mullins, I think you got to extend because he's a good veteran presence in the ball club, in the clubhouse rather. And Laureano's under control through next season, so with an option. But that also might make him a more enticing trade piece. So I'll leave it at that. What do you think?
So I actually think some of the opposite. I think that Ryan O'Hearn should be Mr. Untouchable. Obviously, I don't know if it's been announced yet. I know ESPN was going on the air at 7 o'clock with All-Star starters, but when announced yesterday midday, he was in the lead. So I don't think you're going to trade away an All-Star start. Well, hopefully starter. I don't know if we can find some information on that. I don't know if it's out yet or not. But even if he's just an all-star, why would you trade him away? I know he's been struggling to end June, but still, unless you're gonna get maybe Zach Gallen from the Diamondbacks or package him up in a trade with the Orioles have 6 draft picks on the first day of the draft.
Yeah.
So you package a couple of those up with Mullins or O'Hearn. And going back to what you were saying about Eflin, I believe when the Orioles traded for him from Tampa Bay last year, he was 6-7. And what is he now? 7-7, something like that, something around those lines.
Uh, I'm not 100% sure,
I know he's
but not.
around
It's yeah.
something around those lines. But Cedric Mullins, yes, he's a fan favorite. But has he been producing as well as Laureano and Cowser? At some points, yes, but then you have to figure out, okay, then they have to get an outfielder back in return.
Right. Or you
I
take a shot on
believe
a guy like Dylan Beavers.
you could, yeah, in AAA. He's been raking it down there as well. And I've seen, I believe it was Bob Nightingale put something out that the Astros were interested in Mullins. And I also
Hmm.
saw that the Astros were interested in trading away Jake Myers. Would they trade
Hmm.
Mullins for Myers?
I
Maybe,
don't think I
maybe
think
if
a
there
guy
was a
like
draft pick added in.
yeah, see I see where the thought process is, and trust me, I think that that thought process is not a flawed one, but I don't think that other GMs would probably think that that's a good enough compensation, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think when you're trading a guy like Mullins or a guy like O'Hearn, you're doing that as a forward-thinking move and getting prospects. And Mike Elias loves prospects and guys who are like, a little bit of a sleeper guy. And you look at trades in the past, and when the Orioles were still rebuilding and I believe that if the Orioles are going to be selling off a guy like Cedric Mullins or a guy like Ryan O'Hearn, they're going to do so as more of a rebuilding move and not more of a win now move, which is unfortunate for Orioles fans who see the talent there. But it's just it's just the sad reality for the Orioles is that if they're going to be selling those guys, they aren't they're mailing it in for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I agree with that right there. But also, like you said earlier, Dylan Beavers. He is in AAA. He has been slugging, so that could be Mullins' replacement. This is going to be this is definitely setting this up for debate right here. But Samuel Basallo could be Ryan O'Hearn's replacement. No clue what is going on with him. Adley Rutschman gets hurt. Is it Samuel Basallo time? No. Maverick Hanley gets hurt. Basallo? No. And then we see Chadwick Trump get hurt on Monday. Samuel Basallo time? No. So obviously we've seen Mike Elias say, "No, we want to build him up in the minor leagues. He can't catch because of an injury he suffered back in April or May." Is Basallo trade bait right now? If, like you said, if they're 4 or 5 games under 500, would he be trade bait to get somebody who could help the Orioles get over 500? This sounds crazy, but they're not calling him up, and there's been 3 catchers injured. They
Yeah,
had to go sign a catcher. They had to go sign a catcher when you have the number 11th prospect ranked, I believe it was just came out today, MLB Pipeline. You're ranked number 11, and they go sign another catcher.
yeah, Basayo is the you said O'Hearn is your untouchable. Basayo in reality is the organization's untouchable.
Untouchable.
There is a 0% chance that he gets dealt. Almost I would say a less than 0% chance that he gets dealt. I think honestly there are like 4 or 5 guys who are actually untouchable, and that's Basayo, Holiday, Gunnar, Westberg. I would still say Adley at this point as
Yeah.
well.
And I
And
think,
Cowser too.
yes, Cowser. And then Bautista's not untouchable. Well,
No, you could
in
trade
my
Bautista.
in my mind, like we all love Bautista, but
I think he's
if
actually
they,
probably one of the best trade pieces that they have,
yeah,
and they'd be
yes,
willing to ship him out. I think in a second.
yeah, sadly, yeah. But also, there's been this mock trade that I'm sure you've seen. It's been going all around social media for at least a month now. And my dad, who, no offense to him, but can't really, he doesn't have social media. He uses this app Newsbreak, and sometimes it's not the most trustable stuff. But when he comes to me with these trade proposals that I've seen, I know it's serious because Newsbreak was there the other day saying, package up Cedric Mullins, Felix Bautista, and Ryan O'Hearn, and some draft picks for Paul Skeens. So when he comes to me with Cedric Mullins and Felix Bautista for Mick Abel of the Phillies, and I see that as well, I wouldn't mind that. Mick Abel
Yeah,
is, dare I say, ace material.
could be, could be. I think that that's the sort of move that they would probably probably make is like get younger but also have potential. So if that's on the board, yes, but I think that the Phillies hang up the phone as soon as that conversation has started. In reality, I think that it's funny that you mention, someone in your life who brings ridiculous trades to the table to talk about, because that's in reality that's all the entire scheme of the online fan bases has become. And it's to be fair, everyone's an optimist at heart, but in reality, the Orioles are not going to get anyone crazy in a trade for Cedric Mullins. They're not going to get
Yeah.
anyone crazy in a trade for Ryan O'Hearn or Felix Bautista or Bruno Laureano or whoever you're going to package up, or Tyler O'Neill if he's healthy and they try to dump that salary. But like, it's going to be a couple of arms who are in double A or single A who have a 3.8 ERA and high velo. Like that in reality is what it's going to be. And that's historically how Elias has found and built up a bullpen. That's how he's like operated in years past. And so why expect anything different when you're selling guys? Now, if the Orioles were buying, it would be a whole different story because he's been willing to get rid of pieces. But I don't think that there's any world in which the Orioles are buyers come the end of this month.
And I do have some breaking news. Jackson Holliday did not make AL second base All Star starter. Gleyber Torres beat him out for that. But big talk of this episode so far, Ryan O'Hearn will be the starting designated hitter for the American League.
His first one. It's really
Yeah.
cool. And
From a guy who was DFA'd to then traded for cash considerations back in the winter of what, 22? Because this is now his third season in Baltimore.
yeah, 22, 23, I believe, right?
22,
Is that
23, yeah.
January 23, I believe, was when the Orioles DFA'd him after they traded for him.
Yeah.
And then they were able to sign him back.
Again. And
And
then
look at him
look what
now.
he's done.
Pretty impressive.
But now let's we're still obviously gonna stay with Orioles baseball because, like you said, they have some young prospects, Holiday, Gunnar, and Adley. But the World Baseball Classic is coming back for 2026. Who is your USA dream team right now
Mm,
if there weren't to be any injuries or sudden, who knows, retirements?
mm. That's a tough question. I guess you got to start with right field, right? Uh, you got to start with Aaron Judge, um,
Obviously, yeah.
and get him out of the way. Uh, Maybe Skeens on the mound, right?
Oh, 100%. Him, Mizorowski, maybe even.
Yep. Um, Behind the plate, I like Cal Raleigh.
Hmm.
I
Back
think
up Adley.
maybe backup Adley, maybe. I I think that the chances of that happening have
Are going
diminished
down.
this season. Um, Mookie probably will end up making it. Um, but let's see who else do we want? Um, let's think if there are any Orioles that would potentially make, maybe Gunner, but I think you probably got to put Bobby Witt Jr.
In
there
front of him.
in front
Yeah.
of him. But I think Gunner makes the roster.
Oh, yeah.
I think Gunner is probably the most likely Oriole to make the roster.
Yeah, I saw one of these on Instagram earlier, which actually gave me the idea to
Yeah,
ask about this. I
yeah.
saw Holiday in there, and
Hmm.
this wasn't like a Baltimore-based account. I saw Holiday and Gunner as starters. Judge was DH, and in
Okay.
right field was shoot, now I can't even remember. I know the outfield consisted of PCA,
I was gonna say PCA probably is gonna be in there as well, and and
PCA,
and uh, and the other. I would put
Kyle Tucker.
Kyle Tucker in there too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was Tucker, Trout if no retirement,
Right.
and
Well, even if he
PCA.
retires, right, he's still eligible to play.
Yeah. And then Judge was the DH there. And then I can't remember the rest, but I think Harper was first,
Yep.
Raleigh and Rutschman behind the plate, or it might have been flip flopped. I think it was Rutschman Raleigh.
Yep. And then left field, how about Kyle Schwarber?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Schwarber, PCA, Tucker, and then Trout could be your four guy.
And then center field's PCA, right? Is that
Probably. I mean,
or
I would
Buxton
Keith.
or Buxton maybe?
Oh yeah. There's more guys than you like think when you hear it. It's like, ooh, that's hard.
Right.
And
And
then
then
you
you
just
and then
start
you got to
going.
think about like Corbin Carroll in right field. Like there's like a
Yeah.
right. So there's like a million guys. But
Yeah.
I
And
let's see who else? Who else? First base Torkelson maybe
oh yeah. Or Bryce Harper.
or Bryce Harper. I think Bryce Harper probably would get the nod. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
then
Torkelson,
second,
that's
what do you think second here? Um,
Holiday. Here's a sleeper pick because we do have a season. Oh, that's right. It's this winter, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say Colt Keith, but I don't know.
Mm,
I don't know if I'm locked in with that.
maybe
Uh,
maybe Lau on
yeah.
Tampa.
Brandon Lau, yeah. Oriole killer. Oh.
He is an Oreo killer. He's an Oreo killer.
What about
And then
Marcus Semien?
Semien, yeah, Semien would be a good pick. I like that.
I sadly I think it would probably be Semien and Lau over Holiday.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Barring a crazy second half this year and then them being like, you know what, we want to just do this. First base also over Torkelson. I think it's maybe Pete Alonso.
Oh yeah.
That's
And
that's
yeah.
probably the he's probably the guy.
And it was
Um,
him versus who was it in the NL first base? Alonso and whoever it is for the Dodgers. I'm gonna like smack myself when I remember who this
mm,
is. Who is first base for the Dodgers? Freddie Freeman.
Freddie Freeman, of course.
Freddie
Yeah.
Freeman, Pete Alonso, you can put there. Paul Goldschmidt, he's having a heck of a year.
Goldschmidt too. Yeah.
But
Yep.
one
This is
last
a fun
question.
exercise.
One last question before we end things off. Oh, and we forgot about the bullpen. Josh Hader.
Yeah.
He's a guy who comes to mind quick. I'm just going through my MLB The Show team. Josh Hader.
Exactly. Oh man.
Craig Kimbrell,
Well,
maybe?
the non-Oriole Jeff Hoffman.
Oh yeah. Blowing kisses.
Tanner Scott, maybe on the Dodgers.
Yeah, Evan Phillips.
Yep. Yep. Phillips.
But one last
who's the
question, and it's kind
Tigers
of a weird
closer?
one, and I think I know your
Vest.
answer. Did you
Okay.
see did you see Pete Crow Armstrong having this kind of a season? Or Cal Raleigh, really? Both of those guys.
No. I don't not quite this kind of a season. Obviously, you knew that the tools were there,
Mhm.
especially from Raleigh. You knew that Raleigh was going to be a beast. But 60 home run pace out of a catcher is absurd.
I think
It's
he's at like
absurd.
33 right now.
It's crazy. Now I don't know the catcher home run record. I would assume it's like Bench or Mauer who hit the most home runs.
I'm gonna look that
Um,
up quick.
but I don't think any catcher has ever hit 60 home runs in a season. So to think that anyone could have seen that coming, if they tell you they did, they're a liar.
They're lying. Yeah.
They're a liar. Uh, PCA, on the
So,
other hand, PCA is like he's an electric, like
oh my gosh,
probably the
he's
most fun
insane.
player to watch besides Otani in baseball right now.
Yeah. The record actually happened in 2021, and Cal Raleigh's not that far behind. It was set by Salvador Perez of the Kansas City Royals,
Right. Was it 42?
48.
48.
So that puts Raleigh
Wow.
15
What's Joe
behind
Mauer's
Perez.
most Most home runs. How many did he? Because I remember growing up, Joe Mauer was like the guy who could hit, like the catcher who could hit. I mean, you would have, you were probably too young to remember him even at the end of
Mhm.
his career. But in his prime, well, he only hit 28 home runs. I guess the big thing with Joe Mauer was like he was hitting close to 400 like consistently. Like he was hitting like 350 like at some point in every season. He won the MVP that year. That he had 365 to finish the season. His OPS was 1.03.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy. Crazy.
But
Yeah.
I was thinking we were going to see like either Johnny Bench or Joe Mauer with the record in like the 50s, but
Right.
Cal
Right.
Raleigh could go 2 weeks without hitting a home run, and I think he would still be a
I
shoe in
think I
for that.
think Riley gets to 50 this year for sure.
100%.
Uh he definitely gets to 50. Barring an injury, of course. Like
Or unless he goes to the home run derby.
that's right. Gunnar
If he
Henderson had
goes,
28 home runs or
yeah,
20 home runs in the first half and then eight
and
home
then
runs in the second
finish.
half.
Yeah. But thanks again, AJ, for joining me tonight on episode 18. Always love hearing from you, especially from an Orioles perspective.
Of course, man. Appreciate you having me
Yeah,
on as always.
awesome. Of course, anytime. Thanks everybody for watching, and this was the Jack Cohen Podcast. Have a good day.